I can't take a heart that's broken, make it over again, but I know a man who can. I can't take a soul that's sin sick, wash it whiter than snow, but I know a man who can. I can't walk upon the water, I can't calm the raging sea, but I know a man who can. I can't cause blind eyes to open, or the lame to walk again, but I know a man who can. Some call him Savior, the Redeemer of all men. I just call him Jesus, for he is my dearest friend. If you think that no one loves you, and your life is out of hand, I know a man who can. You're listening to That Other Life. I'm your host, Richard Haddad. George Jones wrote that song, I Know a Man Who Can. After a big topic that we've been discussing for the past 2 weeks, I thought this week we'll dial it down a little, and we'll discuss something that's a little lighter, but still very important. It's something that every grieving person has to endure, and every person wanting to comfort a grieving person should consider a little more before doing. I'm talking about the interactions. Visiting, talking, getting in touch, what to say and what to do. Even though it's a little less complicated than the topics we've been discussing in the recent weeks, it's still a very sensitive one. So please bear in mind, unless I mention specifically who I'm talking about, all the examples that I give and anything I discuss isn't directed at anyone in particular. In fact, everything I say is coming out of experience, coming out of what I've seen other people go through and what I have had to go through recently after Alf passed away. Whenever someone loses a loved one, people around that person usually have to face this problem. What do I say and what do I do? I've noticed there's a list of questions that go through the mind of the person trying to comfort. Questions like, should I mention the person's name, or is that going to bring up too much hurt? Should I ask how it happened? Should I even mention death at all? Should I bring up something that I've had to deal with that may relate to the situation? Can I talk about anything, or should I only discuss the topic at hand or the situation that we're currently going through? And if that's the case, well, what do we discuss? What do we say? Should I try to say something to lighten the mood, maybe? Or is that going to come across as being insensitive? And there are many examples that I can name. What is the answer to all of these? And the truth is that it depends. It depends on the person and it depends on the situation, because each needs to be handled differently and carefully. My advice would be to be wise and to be careful. Try to assess the situation and see how that person is interacting with what's going on around them. Some people who are grieving prefer to be silent. Others prefer to talk. Deal with each person accordingly. Each person grieves differently. Try to meet each person where they are. I know it's difficult when we're talking to someone who's grieving the loss of a loved one, but if you meet them where they are, then that's going to be very appreciated. Recently, my wife and I were visiting some friends, and after a while, the sister said to me, I've been listening to see whether I should mention Alfred's name. And after hearing you mention him a few times, I knew that it must be okay. I appreciated that. She met me where I was. What I didn't get the chance to say then, but I will say now, if she's watching the video, I will take every opportunity I can to speak about Alf. And if I can't find the opportunity, I'm going to create one. I miss him and I love him so much. Yeah, sometimes mentioning his name is going to make me break down and cry. Other times I might just go with it. But it doesn't matter. I still want to talk about him. But you know, that's just me. That doesn't mean that everyone will be the same. So meet each person where they are. If someone is grieving silently, then put an arm around them, cry with them, pray with them, and just sit there. Go home, maybe make a meal, or get them some groceries, or buy them flowers, buy them some chocolate. Get a wipe from the kitchen and wipe down the table, or whatever it is. Do kind things and do them silently. Show that you're around. If you feel like they aren't interacting back with you, then maybe reassess the situation, maybe step back a little. Maybe just come to the door once a week, check up on them, see if they're in need of anything. Maybe drop something off and then leave. On the other hand, if you feel like your company is needed, well then hang around. Assess every situation and then keep reassessing at every phase. The most important thing is, don't take things personally. Both sides are dealing with a terrible situation and with very difficult and heavy emotions. So just be there. If the other person is talking, meet them there too. Converse with them. Listen to what they're saying and then keep the conversation at that same level. If you feel like things are getting awkward or there's a silence, don't feel like you need to speak in order to break the silence. Because usually, especially in those situations, Anything that's said to break the awkwardness is only going to make things a lot more awkward. And since we're talking about speaking things, here's a couple of things that we really should stop saying. Things like, he's in a better place. Or, why are you sad? You should be happy. Or, you know what? It could be worse. Or, look at so-and-so. They lost someone and they're dealing with it fine. Or, you're a pastor's son. You should always be smiling. Or, I know exactly how you feel. Or, all things work together for good. I can go on with many, many examples. Let's think about what we're saying, especially as Christians and as believers. Our words should be wise, meaningful, and not just empty cliches. He's in a better place is a given for a Christian. And to be honest, I actually hate that phrase so much because as Christians, it isn't just a better place that we're going to. We have the assurance of heaven, the assurance of eternity in the presence of God. It's more than just a better place. A better place is what you call a house that you want to move to. You see one house and you say, well, that place is good, but I think this one is a better place. Or maybe you're trying to put a vase somewhere in the house and your wife tells you, well, it's not bad there, but I think this is a better place for it. Heaven isn't just a better place. The presence of God isn't just a better place. Not only that, but the tears aren't being shed because we don't know where the person has gone. Again, especially as Christians, especially as ones that have received the promise of God, the hope of eternity. We're crying because he is gone. Also, let's not be like Job's friends. Job's friends came to him and they were silent for about a week. And then they started preaching at him. You notice that they started preaching at him. They weren't ministering to him. No, they started preaching at him. Their silence was so much better. I don't want to go through every point bit by bit. I think most are self-explanatory. Just assess the situation and then talk from the heart. Don't make up feelings. There's no need. Don't feel like you need to pinch yourself to make yourself cry or feel a bit sadder. Or don't start thinking about the worst moment in your life just so you can empathize a little more with that person. Just be genuine, be honest, and talk from the heart. The best example I can give to illustrate this is my neighbor. I stood outside talking to him and we got to talking about Alf. His eyes started tearing up and he said to me, Rich, I have a brother whom I'm very close to. I can't imagine what you must be going through. Just listening to you is making me cry. You don't understand how much I appreciated how genuine, how honest, and how empathetic he was. He met me where I was and then was able to relate. That's important. The last thing I'll say about approaching someone who's grieving the loss of a loved one is to give you this piece of advice. Please don't leave a grieving person alone. Of course, give them their time to grieve and to come to terms with everything, but don't go AWOL. Don't do a Harold Holt. For some of you who are listening to me and thinking, what just happened? What's he talking about? Basically what I'm saying is do not disappear. Don't leave them alone. Keep checking up on that person. Grieving gets very, very lonely and very depressing. Even for a Christian. Even Jesus wept and was moved more than once when Lazarus died. Check up on them. And if you don't know whether you should say something or not, just say that you're there and that you care. And that's more than enough. The other side to this that I want to touch on, and I'll be very quick, is for the people who are grieving. I'm going to give you 10 pieces of advice from someone who has been grieving and is still grieving the loss of a very loved one. Number 1, don't expect anything. It puts a lot of pressure on people and you're bound to be disappointed. Number 2, don't take things personally. People will say and do things that will probably hurt, but they don't mean it. They just don't know how to deal with it all. Number 3, don't compare your situation with anyone else's. It's very painful. Number 4, grieve at your own pace and let others grieve at their own pace too. Number 5, take what people say with a grain of salt. No one understands what you're really going through. No one really understands the depth of the pain that you're going through, the sorrow that you're having to endure. Yeah, many people may have lost a loved one, but no two relationships are the same. No two friendships are the same. So no one's going to really understand to a full extent what you're going through. So things they say, they may judge, they may give advice. Number 6, let God heal you. Let yourself be healed by God. It doesn't mean that you've forgotten the person, or it doesn't mean that you're doing that person wrong by being healed. You need to heal. Number 7, let yourself cry. Please. Please don't stop yourself and don't hold yourself back. Break down and cry. Don't let your heart grow hard, because it can easily do that. Number 8, do not dwell on what could have been. Let me repeat that. Do not dwell on what could have been. Nothing can be more painful in the situation that you're in than for you to do that. Number 9, find someone that you trust, preferably family, and share your heart with them. Get things off your chest. They may help or they may not, but that's not the point. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you get things off your chest. I'm the sort of person that bottles a lot of emotions, and it can get very suffocating and very drowning with all the sorrow and all the pain that you're having to bear on your own. So please share with someone that you trust. Number 10, pray. Pour out your heart before God and then walk through it all with Him. The reason why I wanted to give this topic its time is because I find it so important that we highlight how abnormal and how strange it is that when we look at death, when we look at sorrow, we all know that it is wrong. And the reason we know it's wrong is because we weren't created for death. God didn't intend for us to endure sorrow. He created us for life. If you need someone to pray for you, or you feel like you just want to scream and say, "Oh, I'm here and I'm hurting," please do that. Send me an email. Let me know. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to share anything or if you have any questions, please send an email to ask@thatotherlife.com. I'm Richard Haddad, and these have been my thoughts on That Other Life. Each person grieves differently. Try to meet